All right, you guys, we are live. Welcome back to our weekly live feed. As you're logging on, we put up our new QR code for my new Instagram. So if you are logging on Instagram, we are going to be on Instagram just long enough on Sean's Couture to tell you to go follow my other Instagram, which is Stage Ready by Sean. So that is up right now. I'm going to stick that right into the comments here. Let's see. If I can tag myself. I've actually never even done that. So let's see if that works. I don't think so. But anyway, that's where you want to go. Okay. Stage Ready by Sean is my new one. So we're going to start going over there from this point on. So this is the last time I'm going to be live here on Sean's Couture Instagram. We are just rebranding, as I mentioned last week. So if you're here on Instagram, head over to Stage Ready by Sean. If you are on YouTube, if you haven't done so already, follow me on that YouTube or on that Instagram. And as we get rolling, I also want to give a shout out to our YouTube partners, which are Prozis, which if you go over there, get your supplements, use the code Cuties10, get yourself a discount. They have everything from supplements to sportswear to food. I get these really cool protein wraps, which are great for prep. So get some protein powders and wraps and energy stuff and pump stuff, everything. They got all of it. They got it all. So check it out. Really high quality stuff too. And then also want to give a shout out to Liquid Sun Rayz, who is also our YouTube partner. Cuties15 is the code for Liquid Sun Rayz. That gets you 15% off on everything, from everything they sell to booking their services for shows, which, if you guys know, I have used nothing but Liquid Sun Rayz for the last 15 years I've been competing. So check them out, get yourself booked, get yourself a discount. All right. Who's here from where? Type into the comments. Tell me where you're logging in from. Tell me where you're coming here from. I just finished watching Behind the Bikini. Yeah, so for those of you that didn't know, we did Behind the Bikini yesterday because Jordan has stuff to do on Thursday when we typically do it. So we did it ahead of time. So Behind the Bikini episode is up from yesterday. So you have cardio theater to watch with that. Our next Behind the Bikini episode will be right after the women finish at Universe next week, because again, Jordan is traveling. So we're both going to be at Universe next week. So we decided we're going to do an in-person podcast on Saturday when the men are on stage. So that'll be our next one. Tonight, we're going to wrap up the shows from this past weekend. And we are also going to preview the show for this coming weekend, Indy Pro. So we are going to wrap up World Classic and also the Flex Pro. There was a show in China as well, but we don't really have anybody there that's really prominent other than Alessia, who I think took fifth. The shows in Europe are getting more and more competitive. So I do want to start covering them more. They're getting really good. So as the shows in Asia catch up, we'll do the same thing. Currently we don't have a lot of really prominent pros from Asia, from China, Japan, all that stuff. So we don't really cover them at this point. But once they get a little bit more traction and start getting a little bit more popular and things like that, we'll start covering over there too, just like we are with the European ones. So we're going to start with the Flex Pro, and then we're going to go into the World Clash. Let me find where we are. Here we go. I think I got the Flex Pro up. Let me make sure that's what this is. Yes, it is. It's the Flex Pro. Where are we at? Here we go. Okay, here we go. So as you guys can see, this was another very big show in Europe. Look at that. These shows are just ridiculous, right? Look at all those bikini pros. I don't even know how many that is. That's a lot. But again, this is why we're going to start covering the European shows a little bit more, because again, they're getting very, very competitive. The top girls are continuing to be the top girls in general. One of the things that I thought was interesting is that, like, we have Alice down here, 14th. I believe she's already qualified for the Olympia. We have Tatiana here, who has been to the Olympia as well. So, you know, these shows over here are getting pretty competitive. We're going to start with Francesca, who was in 5th. And I found this significant because, again, Francesca is usually an Olympian. One of the things that I've always found as far as a critique for Francesca is she tends to be very, very dense. She also tends to be like less glutes than most people, but she's won shows several times, you know. So what I think is happening, to be honest with you, is I think that the criteria in Europe is catching up to the criteria here in the States. I think girls are getting penalized for being too dense, for being too hard, for being too big in different areas. You know, they're rewarding the criteria because the girls are getting more and more competitive in Europe. So, you know, to see Francesca in 5th was kind of a surprise. She's usually 1st or 2nd. You know what I mean? That's usually where she's landing. So, let's take a look at her front pose. There we go. So the first thing that I would say with this front pose is I'm not sure why she has hair over the front of her, other than she does tend to have quite a big lat spread. So I'm thinking maybe this was kind of strategic. They tried to balance her upper body with her lower by putting the hair down in the front. That is most likely why this is. To be honest with you, when I look at her here, she looks quite a bit fuller than what I'm used to. Like usually she's quite a bit harder. So it looks like she's taking her critiques and she's trying to bring the package that she's looking for, or that we're looking for. Like, again, this looks quite a bit fuller than what she typically brings. And I do think she's probably trying to cover up that lat spread, because she does tend to look a little bit like a mini version of figure, just because her lat is so wide. She's got such a small waist and that spread out into her shoulders. She tends to look a little bit top heavy. So I think that posing and that hair was strategic. I think it was strategic. So let's take a look at her back shot. There we go. So from the back, again, she looks quite a bit fuller than what we're used to, right? So for those of you that have watched Francesca, this is a fuller look for her, but she needs more glutes. You know, I think, again, going back to, I think the criteria is getting more and more in line with the US criteria when we're here in the state, or in Europe. And I think that she just needs to add more size. I mean, what's crazy about this too is that she's got that super wide lat spread and she's got big shoulders, but you put her in this back pose and she's diminished all of that. So I'm not sure if that was the best idea in the world. Other than it looks like to me she's trying to minimize the fact she has such a big back. That's what it looks like to me. But she just got to grow some more glutes. She needs to grow some more glutes in order to be competitive. So props to coming in fuller. I think that's good. But she's going to have to go back and get into the gym and actually fill those glutes out quite a bit more. Let's go. So this is Renata. I don't know if we're familiar with her really. She took 5th at the M Pro. So I was going to say she looked kind of familiar, but she's not super prominent yet, but she did just take 5th at the M Pro last week. So she's staying up in that top 5. The first thing out of the gate that I would say is her makeup. Not a big fan. I think I mentioned that even last week too. So overall, really nice frame. And you can see here, just when we were just looking at Francesca, now we're looking at Renata. Renata is a lot fuller. You know, she doesn't have quite as small of a waistline, but she's a lot fuller and a lot more muscular and rounder than we even saw with Francesca. So one thing I would say with her is the makeup is too light. I'm not a fan of the red lips. This just looks like really outdated makeup. And I would say she probably needs to work on maybe bringing down the obliques a little bit. To me, her waistline looks just a little bit thick here. So maybe try and pull that waistline down a little, add a little bit more glute pop, a little bit more shoulder, that kind of thing. And that would help really pop her proportions. But I think her conditioning is pretty good right here. Let's take a back shot. Okay, so from the back, again, pretty good. Nice full round pop. I would be careful of the hair because the hair is really covering up her shoulders. We can't see much of her shoulders from the back. So it has to kind of work on placing that a little bit better. Make sure that when you get in your back pose, you push the hair off your shoulders so it doesn't diminish the shape. But this is really good. She's nice and full around here in the glutes. Again, not too tight through the hamstrings, which we used to see quite a bit when we were talking about, European shows and things like that. But right now, this is looking really good. This is really close to, what we would see here in the top 5 criteria here in the States too. So let's move over to Christina. So Christina is a previous Olympian. She tends to be in that top call out. One of my critiques for her a lot last year was her posing. And she still does a little bit, but she's corrected it quite a bit, where she would kind of yank her upper body back quite a bit. This is a lot better. She's standing up a lot taller. Again, she's very full. She's very round. But what I would say here is that she's a little bit too dense in her quads and in her glutes and a little bit in her shoulders and upper body too. Like, it looks like to me, she's put on some size. But in doing so, her conditioning, like, you can actually see some striations here in her glutes. You see that graininess here in her quads, and we see some striations and vascularity here in the arms. She's actually a little bit too muscular. She needs to pull this back down a little. Stay just as full, but bring it down. Like, I just feel like this layer of muscle that she's put on is just a little over the top. Pretty look overall in the front though, like that. Like, again, we're talking about European competitors, and the suits and hair and makeup and stuff like that is looking a lot better than what we typically see. They're catching up, the criteria. So from the back, I would say she's pretty good. She still needs some upper outer glute, and I would say that this suit bottom is up too high. She needs to pull it down. Because it's up so high, we're seeing a divot right here in her upper glute, and that's just because we're seeing bone there. She's just got the suit bottom up too high. It's too small. So if she pulls it down, or she gets a little bit more fabric there, that's going to help to round that top of her glute out versus making it look shallow. She's got the same thing going on in the back here that we were kind of seeing with Francesca, where we don't see a lot of delts from the back. So she's got to work on correcting that pose. But again, the conditioning is pretty good. She's getting a little bit harder than what we were just seeing in the last two girls. We've got that pretty tight tie-in. She's a little bit too hard here. She needs to soften it up just a touch. But overall, that's not bad. From the back, I think she looks pretty good. I think from the front is where we're seeing a little bit too much muscle on her, a little bit too much density. So she's got to watch that as she's trying to fill out her frame. Reiki. We just talked about her last week. I didn't know how to pronounce her name then either, so sorry. But she was next up in the lineup here. And to me, this looks a little bit better than what she put on stage last week. She's a little bit tighter, except that because she's a little bit tighter, we're seeing a lot of vascularity. We're seeing a lot of vascularity in her arms, a lot of vascularity in her shoulders, even vascularity down here in the legs and in the calves. So that's the hard part about coming in tighter. If you're one of these people that when you come in tighter, you get really vascular, you got to be careful of that. So she's got to figure out a way to kind of downplay the vascularity as she's getting, tighter in the conditioning. Because I do think the conditioning is better, because I think the conditioning, the way she's got it right now, does balance her a little bit better. The last week when she was a little bit softer, her lower half was quite a bit overpowering. I don't think she's as overpowering here as far as the balance is concerned, but I do think because of the vascularity, it's a little bit too much. So she's got to figure out how to downplay that vascularity a little bit, because they definitely don't want to see that in bikini for sure. Let's take a look at her back pose. So again, back pose, I mean, she's quite a bit better balanced than she was just even at the M Pro, but we're looking at real tightness here. There's vascularity through her calves here. She's pinching quite hard through this back, so she needs to release that and relax. She's got some good width here, but she's covering all of that up by pinching so hard, right? So I would say she just needs to relax this pose a little bit. She does look like she's bending at the knees a little bit too much. So if she was to stand up a little taller, this would actually help her. But I think what she's doing, if I'm just going based on what she looked like last week, is she's probably trying to overcompensate for the fact that she wasn't as tight last week, but she is tighter this week. So I don't think she actually needs to do all of this, right? Overall, I think this is a better package than what she put on stage last week, but she's got to be careful of the vascularity and just going overboard with this pose. And next thing, which is our winner, is Stein. So Stein Hansen, she's been to the Olympia in the past. She has missed the Olympia, I think, the last couple of years. Let me see. Yeah, she's been fighting to get back there for a while. I'm trying to see when she actually went. She went in 2020. She hasn't been since 2020. So she competed a lot the last few years. So now she's actually going back to the Olympia. So she did win the show here and get her Olympia qualification. So when we look at her frame, this pose needs some work, right? Her front pose definitely needs some work, but she's full and round. So when we were just talking about Reiki, or however you pronounce her name, this is a little bit fuller. She's a little bit rounder. She doesn't have the vascularity going through her legs and through her arms like we just saw. So that is probably why she beat Reiki, why Stein came out ahead in this particular position. I would definitely work on this front pose. She really overarches. And that's been something that she's been doing the last few years. And I've mentioned it even in critiques in the past. So this is way overarched. You need to stand up tall. Not a fan of this suit. The pink and purple, I think on stage it probably looked a little bit overpowering. And again, makeup is too light, needs to bump up the makeup and glam aspect of this. And to me, it also looks like her tan may be a little bit splotchy as well. So I would say just in general, I think her physique is pretty good here, but I think her presentation aspects need some work. Posing, tan, makeup, suit, all that stuff. I think in order to be more competitive in bigger shows, she's going to need to work on those things. Let's take a look at her back pose. So again, when we're looking at her back pose, she's got fullness and roundness. She doesn't have those super tight tie-ins, but she's really overarching. She's got to be careful with that. And again, the tan looks a little bit splotchy from the back too. Back is nice and wide though. So that's one thing that she does have over pretty much everyone else that was in this lineup that we just talked about, is her upper body, as far as how she's posing, balances her pretty well from top to bottom. So again, it's about balance too. It's not always the biggest girl on stage or the biggest glutes or anything like that, because she clearly has very high hamstring tie-ins. But it's also a balance thing. So I do think she's the best balanced one up there. As far as conditioning is concerned, I think it's the best conditioning. She's not over the top. She's not too soft, anything like that. I think the cut of the suit is fine. I think it's the arch. So I don't really think it's the cut of the suit that's the problem. I don't like the coloring of the suit. But I think she needs to downplay this arch. I think she's way overarching on this. And when you overarch like that, we just see it just cuts off the top of the glute and the upper outer glute, and just we lose some of that pop. We lose some of that 3D-ness when you overarch like that. So I hope she got feedback to not arch quite so hard, because I think that's the main thing there for her. And again, presentation wise, she needs to work on this overall look. Just like the hair look, it's just kind of it's not doing a whole lot. She just needs to work on the tan, the makeup, the hair, the suit, all those kinds of things in order to be competitive, if she wants to be competitive when she comes here to the Olympia. I'm sure she's super excited about the fact that she got her Olympia qualification, because again, it's been since 2020 since she's been here. But in order to be competitive when she comes here, these are the things she's going to have to work on. But again, going back to, a lot of these things that we're watching with the European shows are getting very, very close to the criteria here that's being rewarded in the States. So, the whole competition is being bumped up quite a bit across the board. So, congratulations to her. But we will, like I said, we'll be covering more European shows, because they're getting more and more competitive. And as you could see from that list, it was deep. It was a deep show. I don't even know how many girls, but like 40 girls or something, right? Like, this is Bikini right here. 31 right there. It says it right there. It says it at the top. 31 girls. 31 girls. So it was a big lineup, right? So it's going to get harder and harder. You know, it used to be easy to go to Europe and qualify. Not anymore. Not anymore, right? So we'll be covering them more. Now, let's go move over into World Clash. So the cool thing that, or not World Clash, World Classic, which was part of the Clash series. So the cool thing about this particular show is that if you won your pro card at Junior Nationals, you could turn around and go right into the pro show that night. I did get the live stream, so I'm going to go ahead and share that right now because we'll see the first call out for that. There we go. Okay, here's the first call out. I'm going to get rid of the volume. I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, but it's kind of like sort of over here. So here's your first call out. Go ahead and watch through this. We're going to kind of go through this instead of pulling the pictures up this time. So this was a tough show. This was a very competitive show. I didn't want to say a whole lot about the competitors and conditioning and things like that because I felt like it was a little washed out as far as the stream was concerned. Like I couldn't really see a lot of the conditioning, and I wasn't sure if people were too hard or too soft and things like that. So I didn't say a whole lot about it because I noticed it during the the amateur portion of it. But this top call out was incredibly competitive, incredibly competitive. You can see we've got a bunch of ex-Olympians, that kind of thing. And Reina, I believe it's Reina is her name, right? That's who won it from Mexico. Yeah, Reina. I wanted you guys to be able to watch this so you can kind of see them moving and see the difference in their physiques and things like that. Reina did win it, which is the girl right here in this teal colored suit in the center here. They're going to start moving Jody in. So Jody did phenomenal. This was her first show back in a couple of years, right? The one thing I'll say about Jody, so as we're watching the call out here, I think one of the things that hurt her is she poses really, really sideways. I'm not a huge fan of this pose. I'd like to see her open up a little bit more. I think the reason she did this is to, clearly this shows off the V taper into her waistline and her glute pop. She's improved quite a bit, but I think that it would be more bikini and more flattering if she turned a little bit more onto the judges. I really noticed this during her individual. It looked like her upper body was very, very wide in her individual. It doesn't look like that here. I think she's posing a little bit better during the comparisons. But when she was in her individual, to me, it was like the upper body really stood out to me. So let's go ahead and roll it through. This is Maxine. She just won Toronto. I felt like she looked good, but I felt like she started fading through the show. You can see even now she's struggling with her breath. She's really breathing hard. She's really breathing hard. And I felt like she kind of lost it throughout the show. I don't know if it was nerves or she was tired or what it was. But I just saw her waistline getting a little bit watery and things like that as she posed more. So maybe she was just getting tired or something. Judith right here. From the second she walked out on stage, like I was like, oh my God, she looks good. She looks really good. She's very muscular, but she's not over the top when it comes to like her conditioning and things like that. Her balance is very good. So I think it worked in her favor. So let's watch them turn a little bit more. Go ahead and pop in questions if you have any questions in the chat while we're watching the first call out here. So when we look at the back shot here, Reina's glutes pop out to me immediately. But I do think she's a little bit too big. So, or I'm sorry, not Reina. I'm sorry. Judith. Judith's glutes popped out to me immediately. But to me, this is a little bit too much, right? I don't know what her feedback was. But when we look at the other girls here that end up being in that top 5, she's a little bit over the top on the muscularity, right? Just a little bit too big. So I think that's where she kind of ran into a problem here. When we look at the balance and everything, to me, Reina is the best balance. I mean, look at her upper body and her delts matching with her glutes and her legs. Conditioning is right on point. She's got the tie-ins, but they're not super hard. And I just feel like her balance from top to bottom is very, very good. We got some really good pop on Masa here, but the problem is she's not as big on top with her shoulders as she is on the bottom, right? We still saw some jiggle with Masa too when she was turning and walking to the back, which is interesting to me because she's definitely conditioned. We've got tight hamstrings here. She's very conditioned, but we still got jiggle in the glutes. I'm wondering if it's a density in the glutes kind of thing or what that is. Then when we look at Jody over here, again, really good pop, really good tie-ins here, not too tight, almost. She's like almost too tight, almost, right? I actually thought this might hurt her a little bit because she was so tight through the hamstrings, but she's got some really good shape here. From waistline to shoulders, she has the best ratios back here, period, right? She has the best ratios, like the small of her back up into the width of her back. I mean, that's a great pose right there. Yeah, nobody even comes close in this regard. When I was looking at the lineup here too, as far as the best glutes on stage, I felt like Yulia had the best glutes on stage. Of all the girls here, Yulia had the best glutes. Now, again, that's one piece of the puzzle. So, you know, that's just one piece. When we're talking overall look and overall balance, I really go right to Reina. I go right to Reina with that. So let's go ahead and play it a little bit. Maxine as well. When I look at Maxine, I feel like she's over posing here. We lose a little bit of that projection. And then also the upper body here is just a little bit too small in comparison. I think if she stood up and didn't arch quite so hard, I think that would be a better look for her. So let them walk a little bit. But this was a really, you know, it was a really competitive show. The one thing I wasn't a fan of when it comes to Reina, who won, is her makeup. I felt like her makeup was a little eh. So when we're looking at, so it was Reina, Jody, then Maxine, as far as placements are concerned. So when we're looking at the three of them, honestly, I really think what hurt Jody here is just her pose. I mean, you can see everybody else in the lineup here is a little bit more straight on to the judges than she is. She's just twisted really, really hard in that front pose. And I think that just was over the top. I think if she turned a little bit more open, I think that's the one thing that she's missing here. When I look at Reina, like she could probably turn a little bit, but she's probably not doing that so she doesn't pop her glutes more, because I think if she does that, then she becomes glute heavy. You know what I mean? So I don't understand why you think that you can keep coming on my live feed and I'm not going to just block you. Okay, bye. Every time. Okay, so before we keep going with this, like, why are there people out there that just have to be negative about everything? Can I get those of you that are here on the live stream to just comment so that we can get rid of this freaking douchebags comment on my live stream, like main page here? Just comment something. He's blocked. I put him in timeout the first time, blocked him this time, so he can come back with another freaking screen name if he wants to. Whoever the hell you are, go get a life, man. Like, really? What's wrong with you? Guys, just comment, please, so we can get rid of his his thing up on my screen. Like, the amount of like not having a life you have to come onto somebody's live feed every night and say the stupid shit like that. Like, how pitiful is your life? Right? Like, how pitiful do you have to be to wait every week just to come on here on my live feed and comment something like that? Right? Oh my God. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Good. He's blocked now. Again, he's probably gonna come back with another troll name, just like he did the last time. And we'll just do this again. So to whoever you are, I appreciate you because you are boosting my engagement right now with all of the ladies' comments. So thank you. Thank you for boosting my engagement. I appreciate it. Good Lord, man. Jesus Christ. Oh, Lord. I'm just not having it with y'all. Anyway, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Fucking dumbass. I don't understand. I really just don't get people like that. There's so many people in this world that just have to be negative. Like, why? What is the point, man? It's good for the algorithm. Exactly. Keep going, because I need all the comments I can get during my live. That'll help boost my algorithm. So appreciate it. You just helped me out. Good Lord. I told my husband about it. He's like, you need to have a toilet flushing sound for every time that you that you block somebody. I said, that's a great idea. I gotta find a toilet flushing sound. Oh my God. Okay, we're back. I'm gonna get back to it. I appreciate you guys, because now he's off my screen, so I don't have to see him. All right, so we're gonna keep going. All right. So we're gonna let them turn to the back again. Okay. So again, when I'm watching this, like I'm seeing, Raina and Jody to me are popping out. To me, Maxine just started to fade during the whole thing. I don't know if you guys can see that or not here from watching the video, but I just felt like she just got softer as it went on. Now I wasn't there in person, so it might not have looked like that in person, but to me, that's what it looked like on the live stream. I think that Sierra started getting a little softer too. It could just be, body's stressed. I don't know. So when they get back up here into this front pose, what I want you to look at is, to me, and again, I don't know if you guys can see this or not. To me, I just felt like, again, I saw Maxine getting really labored with her breathing. And I felt like her waistline started getting a little bit soft. So just could be, stress, kind of pulling on stress, like especially when she's in this position right now. Her waistline in comparison to Raina and Jody is quite a bit thicker now. It didn't look like that when they initially started posing. But as she was moving, I just felt like she was pulling on water or something as she was moving through this. So I don't know. It could have been just being tired. Who knows? Stress. She could let the moment kind of get to her. You know what I mean? Who knows? But to me, it was clear that this was a showdown between Jody and Raina. And honestly, I wasn't sure which direction it was going to go. But when I look at the front pose, I just feel like Raina looks relaxed and looks like so this is a good example right here, this front pose, where I think that Jody's overdoing it, right? She's overdoing it with this open up here, right? So when I look at this, like I get why people are like, okay, she's got the smaller waist, all this kind of stuff, but to me, this pose looks forced. Raina just looks like she's just standing there, and we're just seeing her physique, right? So that's where my eye went with that. Keep playing it. This was a long call out. And then I think I screen recorded through till they brought up people for second call out too. I think that's what I did. So we'll just keep it playing. Yeah, they sent off the top 4 and they moved everybody in. Yeah, it just looks forced. Right, exactly. It just doesn't look as natural. Like confidence is a thing too, right? And then they brought in people for second call out too. So they ended up doing this. Then they did a confirmation round. When they did the confirmation round, they moved Yulia in and Masa out. So Yulia ended up placing 6th. Masa ended up placing 7th. So I'm not sure what Yulia's plans are at this point. But here's so this one. And then so in second call out, this is the girl right here that won the overall from the amateurs. So she ended up being in second call out. She ended up doing pretty good. So I'm going to let that stop for a second. We're going to go through pictures. Real quick. We're not going to go through all of the photos, but I did bring up Yulia. I did bring up Yulia to take a look at her. Where I think Yulia needs to improve, and I told her this too, is she needs a little bit more density in the core, meaning like she ends up looking a little bit washed out through the core. And I think she needs a little bit more hamstring from the back and maybe a touch more shoulder. Her feedback here was that she looked like she had like a layer of water over her. So I think if she gets a little bit more density, it takes a minute to put some density on, a little bit of size on, then when she comes back on stage, she's going to be tighter, right? So the issue with Yulia is that once she gets in shape, it's hard for them to keep fullness on her. So they have to feed her a lot, which then blows out the waistline. So it's a really fine-tuned balancing act. So I think if she was able to put on a little bit more muscle, just a little bit more density, that will keep her tighter for when she gets on stage. But I do think, again, I think her glutes were the best in the lineup, but I do think she needs a little bit more balance from the back too. Let's see. So again, from the back, conditioning is great, everything like that. But I think if she puts a little bit more roundness into her hamstring, I think that would actually balance her legs and her glutes a little bit, because her glutes are huge in a good way. They're nice and full and round. She's got phenomenal glutes. So a little bit more fullness in the hamstring, and I think that would really balance her out from the back. In 5th was Ashley. So Ashley looked good. To me, there wasn't a wow factor to me at this particular show. Like, she didn't really stand out to me. I don't know what it was. It was like almost like her presence was a little bit off to me. But her conditioning, when you look at the photos, I didn't see this on the live stream, but when you look at her photos, she's quite dense here. We've talked about this before. She has quite a bit of density in her legs, but you can see some of that vascularity, like what we were talking about with the girls from Europe too. So she does have quite a bit of muscle, and I think it's hard for her to come in shape and not be too conditioned at the same time, because she has so much muscle. So I think overall this was a very good look for her, but there was just something, just something as far as her presence was concerned that didn't really wow me at this particular show. Not like there was anything wrong, not like there was anything off, but it just didn't pop for me, right? Again, I think it was a great look. Conditioning looks great from the back, all of that. But I think it's just hard for her to balance the muscle and conditioning and not look too muscular or too conditioned and still be in shape. So overall, I think this is a good look for her. I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. Again, I just don't think it was like a wow thing for me. Just me personally. That's all. Then Maxine, we just talked about her quite a bit. I think this was a good package for her, but I think that I don't know if maybe she just was tired. Maybe, like I said, maybe the moment got too big for her or whatever it was, because she looks really tight here. But when she was going through that call out, I just felt like she was getting softer and softer. You could, like, again, you could see her waistline going, that kind of thing. So I think she was just gassed, you know? And who knows what that was from. Again, she could have just been tired. It could have just been a long day. Who knows? I don't really know. Let's see if we've got here's the back shot. I think this pose in the back needs to be tweaked, because I think she's pushing too hard and it really diminishes the fullness of her glutes here. I think she needs to underpose this a little bit, stand up a little taller, not quite so arched. I think that would make her a little bit fuller in the back. I think she's just overposing. I think she's overposing from the back. So we're rolling quickly just because we've already gone through their call outs. And then with Judith, I thought Judith looked phenomenal. Again, she was a huge standout to me when she first stepped on that stage. I thought she looked really, really good. I was concerned they would think she was too muscular. I assumed she would be in first call out as soon as I saw her walk out, and she was. But I do think she's a little bit, like, she's pushing it. She might be a little bit too big. I don't know what her feedback was, but I'm assuming they might have told her she needs to be careful with that. Just be careful with the size. I think this is a great front pose. I think she needs to be careful and just kind of relax this a little, but I wouldn't change much else with this front pose. And she's one that pulled pink off really well. You know, so pink was a decent color for her, because it wasn't a bright pink. It's like a berry pink. So I do like this. I like this color on her. Yeah, it was 7 o'clock when they started prejudging, because I was here, I was watching it. So I watched the show. It was 7 o'clock when they started the pro show. They went straight from prejudging into finals. Let's see, back pose. So again, I think that her back pose was stunning. But again, it might be a little bit too muscular. Like, if she was in a different lineup, like that lineup that we saw at Wasatch, I think she would have fit in just fine. I don't think the girls here were super muscular. So I think she looked a little over the top. So if she was in that line with like Amy and Brittany and all them at Wasatch, I think she would have been fine. I think she would have fit right in. But here in this particular lineup, I felt like she was a little bit too muscular, just a little bit. But I wouldn't change much other than just be careful not to get any bigger, you know. And again, I think that this was a good comeback show for Jody. My biggest critique on her is going to be her posing, specifically from the front. So, you know, this is a really good look for her, you know, especially coming back off of being out for 2 years. Coming out and getting that second place is really, really good. She's got to just kind of tweak these poses. This pose to me just looks like it's overdone, right? It just looks like it's overdone. I would also try to get a suit top that pulls her chest in. Now, this is something that I have a hard time with because it's not something that you can really fix with the suit sometimes. Sometimes when the implants are just sitting out that far, it's really hard to get them to go in. But what she could do is she could take those triangles and pull them inward a little bit and kind of attach them in the center so it doesn't look like she's quite so open through the front like that. Also, I think if she relaxed this pose a little bit, I think that would relax this right here too. And that would actually be a more aesthetic look. So I think that in general, I think her physique is pretty good. As far as like could win a show. She just needs to relax the pose a little bit. Yeah, Wasatch was a muscular show for sure. You know, when we look at it from the back, I think she looks great. I think where she could improve is she could put a little bit more size on her shoulders up here. And that's just because when I saw her next to Raina, I felt like Raina's delts from the back were bigger and rounder. If Jody was just standing here by herself, I wouldn't think that, you know, but because she was standing next to Raina, who had nice full round shoulders from the back, I felt like Raina beat her because of that. But this is a really well put together pose. I wouldn't change anything about the back pose. Maybe stand up a little taller. She's bending into the knees a little bit, so maybe just stand up a little taller. But overall, I wouldn't change much there. Just little tiny tweaks based on your conditioning, really. And then with Raina, again, really my only critique with Raina is I'd like to see her open up this front pose a little bit more on the upper body. Again, I think she's posing this way on purpose. But I think if she twists this hip a little bit more, it's going to make the glutes too big. So I think she did this on purpose. And I know you don't want to pull your lat out, you know what I mean? Because then you start looking like what Issa did before. So maybe this is the best of all worlds right here. And she's tried other things. I like the fullness and roundness of her muscle. I like the fullness of her shoulders, you know, like to me, this was almost like an effortless look. It was a very confident, like I'm just here kind of look. I would change her suit color. I don't think this is the most flattering suit color on her. I would change her makeup. And I would probably try to get a little bit darker on the tan, but the tan might be okay if she had a different suit color. Cause I felt like the suit color kind of played off it and made her look a little bit on the greenish side. So the tan actually might be okay if she got a different suit color. Yeah, she was really like, to me, this pose just looked like, hey, I'm here and I'm going to win the show. Like it didn't look like she was trying too hard. You know what I mean? That was the big difference between her and Jody is I felt like she just was owning it. This is my show, you know? And then when we look at it from the back, again, I just feel like this was a very, very well-balanced back pose. She could probably stand to cut her hair a little bit, but it didn't really hurt her here because her delts are so big. You know, her delts really balance very, very well with her lower body. You know, I critiqued her from Dallas for looking a little bottom heavy. Here, she didn't look bottom heavy at all. I think she came in a little bit tighter here. She had a little bit better pop on her glutes here than what she had in Dallas just last week. And I think that was all she needed in order to look balanced. This is a very, very balanced pose, right? So I think immediately when I saw her from the back in that lineup, I felt like she had the best back pose because it's so balanced. Again, the roundness in the shoulder matches the roundness in the glutes. Really simple, really, really easy. So congratulations to her. She also got engaged right after the show finished up too. Her boyfriend proposed to her on stage. So I don't know if any of you saw that, but I did see it because I was watching it live. So congratulations to her on that. Now to finish out, we are going to talk a little bit about the show coming up this week. It's not a very big show, so I just wanted to kind of highlight the girls that are in it. We just talked about Jody. And so she's doing this again. So Jody's here on the list again. So she's definitely a front runner here. It's a decent sized list, don't get me wrong. And we've got some really good competitors here too. So I wanted to run through it real quick and just kind of point out who we should be looking at as far as front runners for this particular show. And one of those would be Brittany. Obviously, she's been fighting for that top spot all year already. So we definitely should be watching Brittany and see, you know, she's definitely a front runner here in this show. She's going to look very, very different than Jody. So it'll be interesting to see how they look next to each other because Jody's obviously not a huge muscular competitor. Brittany is a little bit bigger on the muscle side. And then we have Lizzie, who has not been on stage this year yet, but she placed top 5 quite a few times in the last few years. So I'm curious to see what she's going to look like when she gets on stage. So I would say she's another one to be paying attention to as well. Then we also have India, who clearly just took 2nd place in Miami. She's always going to be a contender. She's always going to be one of those ones that's in the top 2 or 3 spots, that kind of thing. So India is absolutely one to be paying attention to for this show. And then we have Emmy, who clearly, again, has been placing top 3 consistently. Last time she was up against Brittany, she did beat Brittany. So, you know, she's absolutely a front runner here. Last time Emmy was on stage, though, was DC, and she was 5th at this particular show. So, you know, it could go either way with the two of them. They matched up pretty well when they were in Wasatch. So let's see how that plays out for this show for the two of them. And then I also have Lacey on here. So Lacey placed top 5 a couple of times last year, 2nd, 4th, that kind of thing when she got onto the pro stage. She just won a pro card last year. So she's one to be paying attention to as well. Did I miss anybody? Did I miss anybody on this list that has top 5 placings that I should have pulled up? Anybody? I don't think I missed anybody. I think I got, no, she hasn't had a top 5 placing. Never mind. I was looking at a name that just popped up. Just so you guys know, what I do when I go through these is I look for the girls that have top 5 placings. That's who I pull up. So if I missed somebody, you know, there's people on here that we definitely should be watching that like haven't competed for a while and things like that. But I try to get everybody that's had a top five placing up into this in the last year or so. You know what I mean? Or has been to the Olympia, that kind of thing. Anybody I missed? While I'm waiting, if I miss anybody, go ahead and type that in there. But who do you got for this show? Who do you think is going to come out with the win? Who do you think is going to take the win home here? Go ahead and type it in the comments. Type it in the comments. And thank you for boosting my engagement to whoever the troll is that likes to come on my live feed every week now. I appreciate you boosting my engagement. Appreciate it. Freaking ridiculous, man. Some people have no lives. None. Any comments, questions? Who do you got for the show? Yeah, it's too hard to predict. It is too hard to predict these shows. There's nobody going into these shows where we're like, oh, they're going to win it. Oh, they're going to win it. Oh, they're going to win it. No, like all of these girls that are getting on stage right now are fighting for that top spot. They're fighting for that top spot. And they have been all year already. You know, it's hard. These competitors are no joke, you guys. These competitors are no joke. Yeah, I really don't know. Because, you know, the other part of this too is the girls that we all just pulled up, they've all been like top 2 or top 5. You know, they've all like switch places, you know, so it's not like we can say one of them is definitely going to come out on top, right? So it's just who comes in best that day. It's who comes in best that day, really. I mean, again, we look at Jody, who just came out in this last show. You know, she hasn't been on stage in 2 years. She ends up in 2nd place. Same thing that happened with Masa a couple weeks ago at the DC Pro-Am, right? So yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. I mean, I don't know if India will win this or not. Like India should be a front runner. You know, typically we would think that India would be like the one to take it, but she hasn't won a show yet this year. So, you know, it's not that clear cut. It's just not that clear cut. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. So with that, you guys, that is your live for this week. Like I said, if you didn't see it, we did it behind the bikini yesterday. It went up yesterday. So that is up and you can go watch that. The next time that we're on live will be next Tuesday. So we'll wrap up this show. And then we'll be at Universe. So we'll do a live podcast for Universe too. So be paying attention. We'll be doing all of that fun stuff. If you guys... I'm cheering for Brittany. That came in from Instagram right there. Next time I go on live, I am going to go live from my Stage Ready by Sean account versus Sean's Couture. So like I said, we're moving everything over there. If anybody is doing Universe and needs hair and makeup, I have 2 appointment slots available. 2. What am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something that I wanted to talk about. I don't know what it was. I think that's it. If I forgot it, I can always put it on my Insta stories. All right, guys. Well, there is another show. Weekend wrapped up. We got another one coming up. This is the heat of the season. It is just going to get more and more competitive as we go. New pros being crowned, so they're going to start coming out competing as pros too. So it's going to be fun going into the next few months. Hope you guys have had a great week so far, and we'll see you back here live again next week. And that's it.